Hello, you're back on the Ruslan Belov channel. Today's episode is a very interesting one, with extremely important updates from the front. Let's get straight to the frontline overview. Let's take a look at the map. So friends, the past 24 hours saw the largest territorial gains in a single day. More than 40 square kilometers came under Russian control, and notably the armed forces of Ukraine suffered a major collapse on the eastern flank of the Pokrovsk agglomeration. This gives grounds to say that the operation to encircle Pokrovsk and Mirnograd has already begun. But we'll talk about that a bit later. First, I want to start with the Civk direction. If you watched yesterday's episode, you'll remember we already mentioned this area. But at the time, the data hadn't yet been updated, so I couldn't show you on the map what had happened on the Civk sector. Now, a sizable area between the villages of Verkhnekamenskoye and Grigorovka has come under Russian control. To give you an idea, it's over 5 square kilometers. And for the Civk direction, that's a huge success. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. And probably will continue repeating this in the future, just so you understand the contrast. Over the entire last year, 2024, Russian forces advanced only 6 square kilometers across the whole Civk sector. Again, in a year. And now, over 5 square kilometers have been captured in a single day. The difference is clear. This breakthrough became possible thanks to a powerful assault column attack. Footage of this attack has already surfaced online, but only from the Ukrainian side. And the Ukrainian side always shows only what's advantageous to them. Don't forget that. You can see in the drone footage how Russian troops are pushing forward under fire from the AFU. Sadly, the footage also shows vehicles being hit and some of our guys being killed by drone-dropped munitions. So the footage is tough to watch, but it's worth seeing at least to understand how difficult every meter of advance is. Yes, there are casualties, but there is also a result: 5 square kilometers of progress. Again, for the Civk area, and not only there, this is a very good result. There was also ground-level information yesterday that Russian troops broke into a settlement from Verkhnekamenskoye. We're waiting for video confirmation to determine whether it was a real breakthrough or disinformation. Now let's talk about the collapse that occurred for the Ukrainian armed forces on the eastern flank of Mirnograd. Just look at this. A huge section of territory with 3 villages has been lost by the AFU. The advance in depth is 7.5 kilometers, and the total area is 37 square kilometers. Let me clarify, this didn't all happen strictly within the last 24 hours. Some areas were taken earlier, but there was no objective control footage to confirm them. For example, Shevchenko 1 was captured earlier, not in the last day, but there was no footage. So it hadn't been marked on the map. And you know what? That's better. Better not to color it than to mark it and then realize it was fake. So only yesterday we received objective control footage from this area. Now we can analyze what we're looking at. And what we're seeing is the beginning of a very complex operation to encircle the Pokrovsk agglomeration, including, of course, Mirnograd. And interestingly, the current target isn't even Mirnograd or Pokrovsk directly. The current objective is to completely block the entire agglomeration from the north. How can that be done? By reaching another city. Here you can see the city of Rodinskoye. It's much smaller than Pokrovsk or Mirnograd. Before the war, its population barely exceeded 10,000. And look here, from the east, the distance to Rodinskoye from current positions is only about 7 kilometers. And the only thing separating those positions from the city is the village of Razino, where fighting is already underway. The village itself is very small. Let me zoom in. It has just 3 streets. 1 large and 2 smaller ones. So it's unlikely the AFU will be able to resist there for long. Beyond Razino, it's just mining facilities and the city itself. The challenge, as always near mining towns, will be the spoil heaps, terrains of mining waste. There are 2 of them here, 1 to the south and 1 directly in front of Rodinskoye. The one in front of Rodinskoye is quite small, but the southern one is quite significant, nearly 100 meters tall. And right now, Russian forces are only 2 kilometers away from that spoil heap. 2.6 kilometers to be exact. Now, I personally can't yet imagine how the guys will carry out this task, how they will capture those high points. But securing those elevations is absolutely vital. In general, the broader objective is already becoming clear. With this current push and this advance, the shape of the front line has changed significantly, and Ukrainian positions in Mirnograd have deteriorated badly. Let's zoom out a bit so you can see the bigger picture. We're looking at a full semi-encirclement, from current positions near Rezino to the railway and the highway that runs through Rodinskoye, Pokrovsk and Mirnograd from the north. That highway, which is currently the main supply route for the agglomeration, is just 9 kilometers away. But what are 9 kilometers in modern warfare, when drones and precision munitions are in play? It means nothing. The road is already no longer safe, and another 2 to 3 kilometers of Russian advance, and it will become a highway of death. And how will the AFU garrison in Pokrovsk and Mirnograd be supplied then? If the roads from the west are also under fire control, and the northern supply route is nearly cut off, then that's it. Game over. The operational encirclement of Pokrovsk and Mirnograd has essentially taken place, and if Russian forces manage to reach Rodinske, that's it. At the very least, Mirnograd will find itself in total blockade. The only thing holding it back for now is the western flank, because nothing is moving there. If during the same time that huge territories are being captured from the east, there had been at least some progress in the west, say an advance toward the settlement of Hryshyn, then the full encirclement of Pokrovsk and Mirnograd would be just a step away. But for now, it is what it is. There's still a lot of work to be done. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Russian forces choose a slightly different path, meaning they might not even engage in a battle for Rodinske. Even though it's a small town, it still has urban infrastructure and multi-story buildings. Instead, they might try to encircle Rodinske as well. In other words, surround all 3 towns at once. They could bypass Rodinske and go through Novotoretske, then cut the railway somewhere in that area, and from there move toward Hryshyn. In that case, Pokrovsk, Mirnograd and Rodinske would all end up encircled. We'll see what happens. One thing is absolutely clear. The AFU front is cracking. Even the Ukrainian side reported yesterday that if infantry reinforcements are not urgently transferred to this area, the fate of these towns could quickly be decided in Russia's favor. The front is cracking in southern Donetsk region and on the eastern flank of Mirnograd, where collapses like this are taking place. Even the sectors that had stood unchanged for years, like Kamyanske in Zaporizhzhia or the Civk direction, are now beginning to shift, and map updates like these are impossible not to appreciate. For reference, this entire area that came under our control amounts to 37.5 square kilometers. Although that segment over there also raises questions, is there even any AFU presence left? For now, it's being considered a grey zone, but I believe it will soon be painted red as well, meaning another 15 square kilometers will be under confirmed Russian control. Overall, the summer offensive continues, and good news from the front keeps coming. It's clear that the Russian army is adapting to the front lines. If you look at the Ukrainian footage and compare how the Russian army attacked before versus how it attacks now, you'll notice a major difference. There are far fewer images of Russian soldiers being hit. The Russian army is adjusting its assault tactics, becoming more refined. But advancing in 2025 remains extremely difficult because the front is saturated with a massive number of drones. At the same time, the AFU is also struggling to carry out any effective offensives. Large-scale breakthroughs over long distances are practically impossible for both sides at this stage of the conflict. Now for the Donipropetrovsk direction, west of Shevchenko and Volny Pole, Russian forces are pushing the front toward Kamyshevaka. Russian units have entered Voskresenka. They are surrounding Mirna from 3 sides and have taken Podubna. Video confirmations have already surfaced, and this territory has been marked under Russian control. The Russian army has entrenched itself on the eastern outskirts of Tolstoy. Fighting continues in the Hrushevska area. To the north, Russian forces are advancing toward Filia in Dnipropetrovsk region. Next, the Kostiantynivka direction. To the west of Toretsk, Russian forces are fighting for Yablunivka and the area around Oleksandr Kalinov. North of the city, Russian units are flanking the area of the Saint Matrona mine from the north and are approaching the eastern edge of the Klebenbyk reservoir. The primary goal of the Russian army is to block the AFU from the reservoir to Oleksandr Kalinov. If the southern Russian group continues its advance along the Pleshchevka-Ivanopilia-Dilayevka line, and the northern group pushes through Mykolaiivka and breaks through Privitne, reaching Kostiantynivka. From there, it's just 2.5 kilometers in a straight line. Then, the Ukrainian garrison in Chasiv Yar will find itself in a semi-encirclement, at risk of losing its last line of defense and its access to the road to Kostiantynivka. Russian artillery and aerospace forces, VKS, have long been targeting a significant portion of roads leading into Ukrainian defensive lines, making it much harder to supply both Chasiv Yar and the retreat routes all the way to Druzhkivka, Kramatorsk, and Slovyansk. What's especially notable is that even if the AFU manages to hold its current positions in Chasiv Yar temporarily, the town is already losing its function as a major defensive hub. According to some sources, Chasiv Yar is already under Russian control. Russian forces are gradually pressing the AFU toward Kostiantynivka. Given everything described above, it's clear that unless the AFU urgently regroups and reinforces the Kostiantynivka line, the defensive front will be breached, and the route towards Slovyansk-Kramatorsk will open much sooner than expected. And now, a couple of political updates. In recent months, the Russian military has been systematically targeting Ukraine's oil refining infrastructure. Targets have included the Drohobych refinery in Lviv Oblast, the Kremenchuk refinery, the Chuhuiv plant, and several oil depots in the rear, including along supply routes from Romania and Poland. And this is not a one-off. It's a repeated, though varying in intensity, tactic mainly carried out by Geran 2 strike drones. The range, precision, and saturation of these drones even allow simultaneous strikes on Kyiv. Israel, meanwhile, has reportedly concealed the fact that Iran struck 5 of its military facilities, including a major airbase, during the 12-day war, according to the Daily Telegraph, citing satellite image analysis by Oregon State University. The images reportedly show that 6 Iranian missiles hit 5 sites across northern, southern, and central Israel, including an intelligence gathering center and a logistics base. In total, during the short war, Iran struck over 40 Israeli infrastructure targets. According to the Daily Telegraph, Israeli and U.S. air defense intercepted about 84% of the incoming missiles. The IDF declined to comment on strikes against its military bases, but stated that all units remained operational throughout the campaign. Trump, meanwhile, stated he doesn't know if he'll be able to resolve the conflict in Ukraine. "We've helped many countries. The Ukraine situation is Biden's deal, not mine. I'm just trying to finish it, to resolve it, and we'll see. I don't know. I can't tell you if it'll happen or not. Yes, I'd like it to happen." The US president acknowledged that Russia is coping with the sanctions and referred to Vladimir Putin as a professional. "I'd say he's not happy about it, but he managed to deal with the sanctions, and these are pretty tough sanctions. We talk a lot about sanctions, and he understands that more may follow. He's a professional." According to the Telegraph, Trump is essentially giving Putin the green light to act however he wants. The publication reports that amid new Russian strikes on Ukraine, the US is not showing a strong response and has even halted weapon supplies to Kyiv. By refusing to provide Patriot systems, Trump gave Putin the clearest green light imaginable. Meanwhile, Kyiv is almost out of Gepard and other air defense systems, according to former Ukrainian MP and Defense Committee member Bezukhla. She stated that the resource of Gepard systems and similar platforms in the capital is nearly depleted. Repairs are being done mostly at the expense of the crews themselves. Breakdowns might not be serious, but under the current system, there's no simple support cycle in place. Something Ukraine's Ministry of Defense and General Staff have still failed to implement, Bezukhla added. Thank you for watching, friends. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. See you in the next video. Take care and stay informed. Goodbye.